So we can't end the episode without talking about what we've been watching lately. If anything.
That's true.
I spent the past couple of weeks watching through the entirety of The Middle.
Oh, yeah. Me and my sister love The Middle.
Yeah, my sister introduced me to it, and it's really good.
Yeah, it's of like the. Would it be considered a sitcom?
It's a sitcom. It's like
yeah.
They would call it a single camera sitcom because it's filmed traditionally and not like in front of a studio audience like a multi-camera setup would be, like stuff like Friends, The Big Bang Theory, all that. That's where it's a live studio audience, or at least the canned laughter. That's called a multi-camera setup, and then single camera is where it's just it's shot effectively like a movie, or any other kind of TV show, really.
Yeah, of the past like 10 to 15 years of sitcoms, specifically like the ABC, CBS type sitcoms, like The Middle, like I like a good bit. It's one that like when most sitcoms come on, like I just want to change the channel, or if it's on streaming, just scroll by it because I don't care. But there are some. The Middle is one where like if my sister's watching it, I have no issue sitting down and watching it.
Yeah.
Modern Family is decent. I don't like all of Modern Family. Modern Family is
I've
decent.
never watched Modern Family.
It's not bad. I don't think it's as good as The Middle.
Yeah.
But Modern Family isn't like all the other sitcoms.
Yeah. I'm not like the other sitcoms. But yeah, I really enjoyed The Middle, and I was surprised that I enjoyed it as much as I did. But yeah, it's really nice. It's just a very interesting look at a very interesting little fictional family, and it's got really solid character writing, and like all of the characters have interesting arcs that they go on. Like, and you can see that none of the characters are static, none of them stay the same, but they all maintain their core, which is a very like natural way to write characters, because that's how real people generally are. Like, none of us stay the same, but we all have like a core of ourselves that we maintain. And like as details about each character gets peeled away, you start to understand them more. Like early on, like the dad in the family, Mike, it's a little hard to understand why he's so uptight emotionally, why he's not very expressive, like beyond just the typical sitcom dad trope of like, I don't hug your kids, there's no crying in baseball, that sort of thing. But then as his dad and brother, his brother Rusty, played hilariously by Norm Macdonald, rest in power. But yeah, the late great Norm Macdonald. But yeah, like you see what Mike's family life was like. You hear stories about how his dad raised him and about how he interacted with his brother, and you see what his brother and dad are like. And you hear stories about his mother and how he lost her when he was only a teenager. And so like for a lot of the most important parts of his life, he just didn't have his mom anymore. And it's very clear through the like very sparing moments in the series where he tells stories about her that she's someone he cared about a like very great deal. And it's and you can you start to understand why Mike has so much difficulty being emotionally open, even with his own wife and children. And like I said, it starts as the typical sitcom trope of uptight dad, but it very slowly turns into an understanding of a man who carries a very deep hurt in his heart, and has difficulty opening himself up enough to someone not because he thinks they're going to hurt them, but because he thinks something could happen to them. You know what I mean? Like there's always that unpredictable risk that something could happen to this person that I love. So like he just has difficulty expressing that affection, at least outwardly, to anyone, his family included. But then you also get those moments throughout the series where like you see the way he expresses love is by sacrifice. Like Mike makes a lot of really big personal sacrifices over the show so that his wife and children can have what they need or want to either survive or pursue their goals. Like Mike is a really interesting character, and all the characters in the show are like that. He's just like an easy example to point to, because when you binge the entire show in 3 weeks like I did, it's easy to like pick apart an arc like that. And like you can even see also there's a point in the show where Mike tells his daughter Sue that she has always reminded him of his mother, and it starts to click once he says that, like why his relationship with her is the way it is. Because at first you think like, oh, she's the only daughter in the family and he's the protective dad, you know, he's just being a dad to his daughter. Like he treats the boys a little more harshly and expects better from them. Right. And he lets Sue slide on a lot of things. Sue is also just generally a better kid than the other two anyway, but that's neither here nor there. She makes far fewer genuine mistakes than Axel and Brick do. But once you hear that Mike sees his mother in his daughter, you start to understand why he like treats her with a sort of light favoritism compared to the boys.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. It's like it's such a great show, and like I said, like all 5 of the leads and the vast majority of the supporting cast give so much to dig into and pick apart and analyze. It's one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best written sitcoms that's like ever been produced.
Yeah.
From a character standpoint.
Yeah. Of like not recent sitcoms, but past 20, 25 years, the 3 that I've liked are The Middle, Modern Family most of the time, and like my sister she didn't revisit it, but it was a revisiting for me. She started watching Malcolm in the Middle earlier this year, and like whenever she'd watch it, I'd sit down and watch it with her, and like Malcolm in the Middle like is really funny. Like I really like it. Like growing up, I watched it when I was a kid, like waiting for the bus to come. It'd be 5 or 6 a.m. or whatever to pop on. But like, yeah, like now growing up watching it, sure, the kids can be annoying sometimes. I mean, what kids aren't? But like, I don't know. It's funny, but also there's some good moments. There's growth. But there's not a lot of the good sitcoms that you keep wanting to pump out garbage like ABC and CBS.
Yeah.
I guess they're still making money on that garbage. I don't know how it works where like a show gets 1 or 2 seasons, no one likes it, and then it gets canceled, and then you do the same thing with the next thing. I don't know. But all that's to say, even though they are over, The Middle, I think Modern Family is over. I think it ended last year.
Wait, it was still going until last year?
Oh, yeah. It went a while. Let me see.
I thought it ended a couple of years ago.
Maybe it was a couple of years ago. Let me see. Modern Family, last episode. Okay, April 8th, 2020.
Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, one thing that surprised me was how long the middle ran, because I remember I would see commercials for it watching TV when I was younger, but like it ran so long that like the cultural shift towards streaming occurred, and like I wasn't seeing ads the same way anymore. So I never saw commercials for it
Yeah.
anymore. So I just assumed that it was one of those little sitcoms that just kind of showed up and then disappeared. And then like come to find out, there's 9 seasons of it, and it ran until 2018.
Dang, that's awesome.
It ran through both of Obama's terms nearly entirely, and then 2 years into Trump's.
Dang. Yeah, I just looked up Modern Family. It was September 2009 to April 2020. All right. So at least with these good sitcoms, like The Middle, like Modern Family, they lasted for a while. I'm okay with that.
And you see, that's the thing about sitcoms. I find that the sitcom ecosystem tends to be, usually at least, a little more fair than other types of like TV. Because like a bad sitcom comes and goes, but the good ones last forever.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah,
Cheers,
because
11 seasons. Frasier, 11 seasons. Wings, 9 seasons. The
yeah,
Middle, 9 seasons. The
as well
Office,
as
9 seasons.
yeah, as well as like revisiting it, like The Middle, you can
Yeah.
revisit it. Malcolm in the Middle, like I revisited that. That was good. The Office is like the classic one where like you could revisit it at any time, any episode, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like those are the ones where like not entirely say they'll stand the test of time, but like they'll last decades in terms of like people going back to it or people discovering it, new generations discovering it.
Oh yeah, the Middle, like with the references and like just the way things change over the course of the show, it's definitely a time capsule of its era.
Mm-hmm.
But and like it's recent enough that it's still not like jarring to hear or see the references on screen. But yeah, as the years go on, the Middle I don't think is, at least as far as like its era, is probably not going to like age as well. But like the characters in the story are still gonna like stay good.
Yeah, and maybe it's the same for you. I like The Middle because it is like the family is relatable. Not entirely saying like each character is relatable, but I think they are.
Yeah.
But like the setting itself, like yes, I aren't they? Is it Indiana?
Yes, it's Orson, Indiana, the
Yeah,
middle of.
I don't live there, didn't grow up there, but I grew up in like a rural small town, and
Same.
like I don't know, it gives me that same vibe, even though it's hundreds of miles away.
There was so much I could relate to in that show just because of its setting, and I grew up in the middle of Wisconsin.
Yeah,
And I like my tiny town. I grew up in a town of 1,500 people.
yeah. I think mine wasn't that small. I think population was 4,000 or 5,000.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those good things. Like sitcoms seem to be falling out of style, and I can't think of like a recent sitcom that's still on air that is getting buzz, but also like I'm not paying attention to those.
The last sitcom I remember hearing getting any notable amount of praise was Young Sheldon.
Yeah, my sister watches Young Sheldon here and there. I'm not huge on it. It's I don't know. It's it's okay to me, but I just can't get into it.
Yeah, no, I've never seen a single episode.
Yeah,
That's one
you
of those
don't
ones
have
where
to.
I am happy to let other people have it. I just don't
Yeah,
want it.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
watched The Big Bang Theory for a good while until I realized that it wasn't actually funny, and stopped.
Oh, I remember like one of my first experiences with the Big Bang Theory was it was like a home group type thing with our church.
Yeah.
And we were at someone's house and they had the Big Bang Theory on and they talked about how much they loved it, watched it, all that stuff. At this time I may have been like early high school, maybe mid to late high school. And it was on and they were watching it, and jokes happen like in the Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
And laugh tracks playing, as well as I hear them laughing as well as other adults laughing. And like, not that I didn't get whatever was said, I got it. I just kind of sat there as like the outlier or the outcast of just not laughing.
Yeah.
I was like, it wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad show, but it was like, like why is this getting so much laughter?
Yeah.
Or why is this getting so much enjoyment? Like, it was whatever the episode we were watching, I don't remember at all what it was. It was okay. It's better than like other sitcoms and stuff, but like, would I like stay for the next episode? No.
Yeah. For me, I appreciate what the Big Bang Theory did culturally, because it came along right at the right time to help make nerd subculture more mainstream.
That's true. Yeah.
Unfortunately, a huge part of the show's identity was how much it relentlessly and sometimes cruelly mocked its subject.
Yeah.
And it stuck around long enough for its own shtick to become passe.
Yeah.
Like it made fun of nerds just long enough for that to not be funny anymore.
Yeah.
Like nowadays, everybody partakes in some sort of pastime that used to be considered nerdy. Like, the nerdy pastimes have been separated from the nerd at this point, and now you're only like really actually a nerd. Like, people say, "Oh, I'm a nerd," you know, I play Call of Duty. Like, nowadays, to be an actual nerd, like, well, you kind of need to be like us, where your identity is kind of wrapped up in doing a lot of those things in combination.
Yeah,
Like,
because I remember. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, for me, like, I'm a nerd not because I watch anime, read comic books, and play video games and Dungeons and Dragons, plural. I'm a nerd because I do all of those things, and they are like the only things I like.
Yeah. Like, I remember, like, it's weird to think about it. 2 or 3 years ago, store brand comics. It's weird to think that it was 2 or 3 years ago, but
Right.
store brand comics, us talking about how, like, Star Wars, like, liking Star Wars, like, even back in the 70s, like, people treated it in the 70s and 80s like it was a nerd thing, but it really wasn't. And like, even it, not really now, but like 5 to 10 years ago, it was still like a nerd thing, but made no sense because literally everyone would go to the theaters.
It's Star Wars in some way.
Yeah. It's
well,
weird.
that's not true. There are people who have always disliked Star Wars, but like when something is as mainstream as Star Wars, it can't really be considered a nerd thing, can it?
Yeah, exactly. It's like the MCU. I wouldn't consider the MCU a nerd thing.
No, as soon as 2012 came along and the Avengers hit theaters, Marvel wasn't a nerd thing anymore.
Yeah, as soon as you break $1 billion, I don't think you're a nerd thing. A lot of people saw it.
Yeah, like, what makes something a nerd thing is that it is niche. Is that like, it's not some big, like, super big thing. So like superheroes, yes, nerds love superheroes, and there are superhero nerds. I am one. But at this point, superheroes aren't a nerd thing anymore.
Yeah, no, like, something that is a nerd thing, I would say, like, comics in general are still a nerd thing. because the thing is, like, manga, I don't know if I entirely say it's a nerd thing. I might put it in there because it's still not like,
Teenage girls read it. It's not a nerd thing.
it's not extreme numbers, but it is extremely high compared to comics.
Yeah.
Like compared to Western comics is what I mean.
Yeah.
But like,
And that's because anime has been getting more mainstream, and people
Yeah,
see
yeah.
the anime and they want to go read the manga.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, like anime, I think still has a little bit of that, but I think it's almost out of like being considered a nerd thing.
Yeah, it's
Um,
losing its stigma. There are some people though who really, really hold on to the idea that anime is just cringy and bad all around. And
There are, but that is dying. Like
Yeah.
that'll be gone in 15 to 20 years.
yeah,
Um, Manga, I think, will still hold on to the nerd thing a little while longer, but it will
that's only
eventually.
because you have to read it.
Yeah, yeah.
Anything
Like
you have
reading.
to read is probably going to stay a nerd thing, because books
Yeah.
are still a nerd thing.
It's still, yeah,
And,
books are still a
and
nerd
books used to be the only way you could be entertained.
thing. That's true. Yeah, I wonder, like, when movies or TV first started out, when it was first technically considered niche, if you watched a movie or watched a TV show, if you were considered a nerd then because of how niche it was at the time.
Yeah.
But then a year or two later, it's like, oh no, everyone loves this.
You don't want to hang out with Stuart. That guy's a nerd. He listens to the radio.
Yeah.
He listens to Little Orphan Annie every single night.
But something that I think, I don't know if it ever will escape nerdom. I can, obviously, I see anime escaping it. I see manga eventually escaping it. I don't know if comics will ever escape it.
Well, you see, that's the thing. It's kind of weird. So
I want it to escape it.
Superheroes became super big because of Marvel. I mean, Marvel Studios specifically. And then every studio was scrambling for a comic book property to adapt. But the thing is, every comic book adaptation is extremely different from the comic it's based on, and none of them really function as advertisements for the comics. In fact, it's almost the other way around. Like, once a comic book series gets a movie adaptation, the comic then starts to retroactively function as an advertisement for the movie.
That is true. Yeah.
Whereas with manga, at least here in America, the effect it seems to have is that the anime seems to, because of its how rigidly most anime stick to their, like, the adaptation, it functions almost like an advertisement for the manga, which is weird. You'd think that wouldn't happen because you're getting the story in the anime. Yeah. Why is it driving people to go read literally the same story in manga form? It's really weird when you think about it.
Yeah,
because, like, superhero movies, comic book movies, they're telling different stories than the comics they're based on, but they're not driving anyone to go read the comics. People are content with the movies. Anime is beat for beat, almost perfectly reconstructing what was originally put on the page for manga, and yet people see the anime and they want to go read the manga.
That's true. Yeah,
it's so weird to me. Like, I'm not upset by it. It's just a weird phenomenon.
It's something to. It's an observation that, like, it's clear. Like you would think, like just thinking about, you would think, like, oh, the difference in terms of like this comic and then the movie that was based off of the comic. You would think, like, oh, like people want to go check out the comic because, like, they want to see the story it originated from, as well as see, like, how different it was. Whereas, like manga, it's pretty much, like you said, it's beat for beat, but people still want to go check it out and read it. I I'm not sure if it would work, but maybe that's something for Western comics to consider. I don't know.
I noticed another thing too. In American superhero movies and comic book inspired movies, bad movie, as far as the public is concerned, equals bad character. And like you get one bad movie adaptation for a comic book character, the property is burned.
Yeah, you're not going to see that character definitely for a very like decades have their own movie, but you won't see them in another superhero character's movie for like years, a decade or more, because you got to let people forget. That's basically what it is.
But the culture around manga seems to be bad anime adaptation. Well, maybe the manga was better.
Yeah. That's case in point, like Tokyo Ghoul. Like a lot of people hate the anime. I never watched the anime.
Yeah.
But like a lot of people hated the anime, but a lot of people talked about how good the manga was, which I think led into me reading Tokyo Ghoul. Because I
started reading Tokyo Ghoul again, by the way.
Oh, awesome!
Because I have the Shonen Jump app, so I plan to read it all the way through this time.
Yeah,
But I'm reading in rotation with a bunch of others. I'll go over that later if we.
Yeah, I gotcha. But yeah, like I don't know, like I was like commenting on an Instagram post. Someone was talking about the current state of comics, things they are frustrated about, as well as like not entirely fixes. It's more just a discussion. Like what are you guys' thoughts on it? Like if you could change something, whatever it may be, that sort of thing. Just hypothetical stuff. And I remember some of the stuff I put on there, I still agree. I think this could work if Marvel or DC cared enough. Because yes, you do have your other series. You got Boom, you got Image, all that stuff. Yeah. But when it comes down to who has the biggest voice, it is Marvel and DC.
Yeah, objectively speaking, yes.
Yeah. So one of my big things was like, someone had mentioned this, and I had mentioned that it was a valiant effort, but they did a crappy job with it. DC did the Walmart books. They put books in Walmart, and you could only get them in Walmart. And then like a year or two later, they would collect the stories into issues you could buy at the comic shop, then trades, that sort of stuff. But releasing, you could only get them at Walmart. I like that idea. Hey, we actually have comics in a department store. My biggest issue with it is the placement of those books. I knew where those books were because I grew up as a nerdy child going to get freaking Yu-Gi-Oh cards from this section. They put it in the section where the trading cards are. Everyone, if you've been in Walmart and you have ever been into Magic the Gathering, or you've been into
Pokemon,
Yu-Gi-Oh, or Pokemon, whatever, you know the section I'm talking about. It's like a one aisle, kind of near the front of the store.
Yep.
And you can go down there and they have all the stuff.
It's the
they put the comics. Yeah, it's the nerd section. They put the comics in that section. My issue with that is like you did a good job. You're trying to get people to read comics. My issue with that is like the people you need to try to get to read comics, I think, are children. I think that's a big thing if you want comics to continue. But you're putting it in a place that most children, or even I would say most people, don't know about. Most people aren't going to that aisle because anytime I go there, no one's in that freaking aisle. It's just the nerds that pop in every once in a while to get their Pokemon cards or whatever.
The only kids you're reaching with those comics are kids who are already reading comics.
Exactly. And kids don't know about that section. Let's say they want to read comics. They don't know about that section. They don't know that comics are there. Yeah. You have to put it in their face. You have to put it in the faces of them as well as the faces of the parents who want to satisfy the kid and get them the $4 Yu-Gi-Oh pack. That was me when I was a kid. Translate that with comics, though. So I think there's two different things you could do with this. I think you could do both of them, honestly. But one, kids are always in the toy aisle. Why isn't there a little section in the toy aisle for comics or near the toy aisle? Like if you or Marvel or DC, if you're trying to put comics in department stores, why aren't they near the toy aisle or in the toy aisle? That's number one. So that's a good place to put it. I think a big place because here's the thing, it's going to cost you to get that shelf space, like from Walmart, from Target, anything like that.
Yeah.
It's going to cost to get that shelf space. I think you'll make your money back, though, and it will help your industry as a whole. At least try it. You tried Walmart books, and I think that completely failed. They don't even do that anymore. My second thing is when you go to a cash register, this is the same even with self-checkout. This hasn't changed. When you go to a cash register, one of the first things you see are those trashy, awful tabloid magazines.
Yeah.
They're still there.
The impulse buy section.
The impulse buy section, exactly. That's where I think comics need to play into with these department stores. One, shelf space is cheaper than if you were trying to put it in the toy section. So there, it's cheaper right there.
Plus, another thing is there are often already comic books there. There's usually like an Archie or a Betty and Veronica there. Yeah, like sometimes it'll be like one of those mini digest versions of them. Yeah. A lot of times it's hard to see comics on those shelves, so it's not that much of a stretch.
But a lot of times it's hard to see those because they're surrounded by all these awful magazines.
Yeah.
But like get that space, because like I thought about it like a couple weeks ago when I was writing this. I was like, I've always thought, like, who is buying these trashy magazines? But then I thought about, hey, like they've had this space for decades. Someone's buying them. People are buying them if they still have this space. So that just tells me like it's still a good space, even for how trashy this is right here.
Right.
Throw in some quality comics.
We can get misinformation for free on the internet now.
Exactly. But the thing is, like, throw in some quality comics, Marvel and DC, in those spots. It's cheaper than the toy section. Throw them there. And like you said in the beginning, impulse buy. Little kid sees Spider-Man, or little kid sees this or that, whatever. It's like, Mom, can I get this? And the reason I think it could work is because your candy bars and stuff like that are right there. Those are impulse buys, because almost all the time children are like, Mom, can I get this Reese's? Whatever it may be. Those are already like $1.50 to $2 or whatever. The parent is buying them. Comics, yes, they've gone up a little in price, but even if it's $4.99, it's not that big of a deal. It's $4.99. Yeah, I'll get this Spider-Man comic for little Jimmy or whatever. Like
Spider-Man versus the Butt Bandit sounds good enough.
Obviously, age appropriate. But I mean, even then, you could have, because you have your rating labels. I don't think in that spot you can have any rated M comics. You can have rated T plus. You can have T plus comics. Like not saying all of them are T plus. Obviously, varied in ratings. Like have a E, have a T, have a T plus, that sort of thing. Like they already do in comic shops.
Yeah, have your My Little Pony, your Spider-Man, your
SpongeBob comic. Like, not saying Marvel or DC does that, but
like equivalents.
Yeah,
or if more than Marvel and DC started doing that.
And I'd be okay with that. It doesn't just have to be Marvel or DC, but in order for it to work, Marvel or DC has to do the first push for any of the other ones to jump in on it.
That is true. Yeah, they kind of have to be the ones leading the charge, otherwise the charge doesn't happen.
Because that's the thing. DC, I think what you tried doing was a great idea. I just think you got screwed over on the deal, or you didn't realize that you were going to get screwed over on the deal with that placement. I think do the same exact thing with Walmart, Target. Hey, you don't even have to do both at once. Like with the DC books, try it out in one department store, try it out in a Walmart or a Target. Get that, I'd say, try it out with just that trashy magazine space, because it's going to be the cheapest option compared to the toy aisle.
Yeah.
Try it out. If it does well, then you can maybe renegotiate and maybe get part of that toy aisle.
Yeah.
I mean, just try it out. You tried out the Walmart thing. It failed. So clearly you're okay with trying stuff out. Try it out. I don't know.
Just try it. How you know you don't like it if you don't try it, DC?
Yeah, but instead, let's try all our other marketing tactics that keep failing.
Yeah. Like killing off Miss Marvel just so that we can have her big triumphant return in time for the movie she's going to be in.
As well as everyone knows, I mean, obviously it's comics, no one stays dead, everyone knows characters coming back to life, but the advertisement for the character coming back comes out before the comic she dies in.
Yep. Yeah. Yes.
Like what the heck?
And it's really blatant what they're doing on top of it is they firstly, you know, the advertisement, you know, coinciding with the big movie and everything, but also like the very obvious fact that this was just an excuse to make her a mutant so that it lined up with the MCU.
Yeah. Which crazy, because they don't even touch on it in the Marvels. So you're doing all the, I mean, like, I'm okay with her being a mutant in the comics. I'm cool with that. I don't care about Inhumans. But like, all of this is to make her a mutant because you want to tie together with the whole movie version of her.
Yeah.
They touched on that in the Miss Marvel show. They didn't even mention it in Marvel's movie. So
I still haven't seen it. So here's something kind of weird. The Marvels is officially the first Marvel movie in 12 years that I have skipped at the theater.
Really?
And I didn't do, like, before anybody wonders, no, I don't hate Brie Larson. Like, this has nothing to do with any of that. It's just because money's been tight for me. I don't have a whole lot of free time anymore. And at this point, I've fallen behind on some of the shows a little bit. I've fallen behind on Marvel a little bit. And it's not because I suddenly hate Marvel now. It's just I've been readjusting the way I approach it. Because for years, I have been participating in Marvel stuff with the expectation that, like, oh, this is, you know, this is probably the only interest I'm ever going to have that can be a fun catch-all conversation with almost anyone at this point, because Marvel had officially hit the mainstream. So like it was something that I already cared about, that I could talk with people about and it wouldn't be weird, because I have difficulty focusing on non-preferred activities. But now Marvel discourse has changed a lot since Endgame. And I am going to be honest. Now, okay. I am not an MCU is dead person, but I do have to be honest. Misses have been happening more frequently with Marvel. And we understand why now in the wake of the writers and actors strike.
Right, yeah.
And like with that recent thing that they came out with. So do you remember that Disney Investors Day thing we did a whole episode on years ago with Storebrand?
I think so, yeah.
Like back in 2020?
Yeah.
So it turns out Disney, like the core company, was pressuring their branches, Marvel, Pixar, and Lucasfilm, to announce ideas that weren't actually in development yet, just to bolster their investor reel, to like make investors think like, oh, they know what they're doing. They have a plan.
Yeah.
So like a ton of stuff got announced. Like that's why pretty much everything that Kathleen Kennedy announced for the Star Wars stuff hasn't happened.
Yeah, yeah.
Like a few of those things happened so far. And so far, Marvel has been more on track with keeping the promises, but things have been shifting a lot and changing, and like everything, it's all happening a little differently than was initially announced, because Feige had to announce stuff that at that point had only just been pitched in some cases.
Yeah.
Like obviously stuff like WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier and all that were pretty far along. But things like Armor Wars, that was probably still just a pitch, which is why it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that definitely wasn't solid. So but yeah, so like we have a better understanding for why things have been happening the way they've been happening now. And it all comes down to Disney is screwing their smaller companies over a great deal. In the name of just cranking stuff out. And Disney is actually feeling the consequences of that. Like company-wide, whether it's core Disney, whether it's Marvel or Pixar or Lucasfilm, they've been experiencing a huge loss for the past couple of years. Like last year was a loss for them, if I remember. 2023
itself, people had like a top 10 box office bombs and stuff of 2023. Yep. I think half of the list was Disney. Yep. And I think that half, that 5 or 6, was at the top of the list.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I listened to the Weekly Planet like top 10 box office.
Yeah,
bombs.
that was
like,
one of the ones.
The entire second half of the list was Disney or something Disney owned.
Yeah. Yeah, because you had Wish, you had Indiana Jones 5, you had the Marvels, Quantumania. I feel like there's something else I'm just forgetting, but
wasn't there a Pixar one that came out this year that flopped, or
Wish, or no, it wasn't Pixar. Elementals. I like Elementals. That was the Pixar movie of this year.
Right, Elemental did well, I think.
It at least broke even. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, Wish flopped.
Yeah. I heard nothing but bad things about that.
Yeah.
I saw the trailer and knew I wouldn't like it. So.
Yeah, I like the art style they went for, like the sort of more low detail thing they did. I kind of like it. But everything else about it, like it was just such a modern Disney movie in tone from all the trailers. Yeah. It's like they're really
and
not
the humor. The humor was like so like awful. Like I get, yes, these movies are for kids, but like I don't know. This is like stupid kid humor.
I was gonna say, you know what else was for kids that came out this year? That Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, and it was hilarious.
Great. Yeah, I finally saw it. I actually saw it within the past week because I'm trying to make a top movies of the year list.
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
Yeah, that movie was awesome.
Yeah, like I don't know, effort, and I like the animation of Wish, but I also kind of dislike it. I don't know it for Disney. I don't know. The quality's just it's not entirely the animation. It might be like some of the framing just seems odd. Some of it seems like TV show, like Disney or Nickelodeon animated TV show type stuff. It doesn't really feel like a movie. Like when I saw it, the animation looks like Sophia the First, which is a Disney Junior show or something.
Yeah.
Which I remember watching that with my sister when I was a kid. But
Disney Junior. Back in my day, they called it Playhouse Disney.
But yeah, like I don't know. Well, yeah, Disney definitely they lost billions of dollars this year, and you can definitely see them trying to course correct with 2024. Like MCU, it's just Deadpool 3.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
I mean,
you have
especially
like
they're
the
doing
TV
for
shows.
shows, but
Yeah.
the only movie is
But
Deadpool 3.
that's the thing is like, yeah, I heard of the TV shows that came out this year. Most of them were good. Loki too. That's the thing people are always talking about with this year. I don't think
I
I've
heard
seen.
Secret Invasion was bad, but I still have to see it myself so that I can tell people whether or not they're right because I'm the authority.
Yeah, I keep hearing it's bad. I thought about it. I don't think I've seen any Disney Plus Marvel stuff for this year. Like
I
you, like I just got like busy and as well as like money wise, just
yeah,
focusing it on different stuff.
I heard What If was really good this year.
I want to watch that because of the ones like that's the one I like a lot. I like my anthology stuff,
Yeah,
but just haven't got around to it.
but yeah, so yeah, I still have to see. I have to see pretty much everything post Guardians Volume 3. So Secret
Yeah.
Invasion, Loki 2, Marvel's What If, and now Echo. So yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, Guardians 3. It's like it's the outlier for the movies. I'm not saying I actually kind of liked the Marvels. I wouldn't say I liked it or loved it, but it's worth seeing. I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's great or good, but I don't think it's awful.
I'm
But
probably gonna start, but like for my free time, probably gonna start watching some Marvel stuff because like I've been watching stuff like I finished Primal. Like I watched Primal all the way through.
oh yeah,
It's
yeah.
like Gendy Tartakovsky's Primal for those.
Yeah. That's still
Like
on my watch list.
I started watching Unicorn Warriors Eternal a couple nights ago, which is really good so far. I'm 3 episodes in on that one. All the characters look like they come from completely different TV shows, and it's awesome. Like Tartakovsky, that's a creator who just like you can tell that he does what he does just because he loves cartoons.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
You can tell that he doesn't really care all that much whether or not
About
it's
popularity or anything.
yeah, like about whether or not it's something anyone actually wants to see, which is great
Yeah.
because that's usually the sort of thing that people want to see.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
if he's making what he likes, and the people who are on board are, and those who aren't.
Yeah,
But like, the thing is, his stuff is getting by on the strength of his name as a creator, like the strength of his name as the creator of Samurai Jack and the director of Hotel Transylvania. So like so I'm happy to see that there is at least one auteur animator out there still doing stuff. Because like auteur animators aren't like a thing. You know what I mean? Like you don't see stuff like Guy Man Person's title.
Right.
Like,
has that and
Tartakovsky's
then
Primal.
there's no Hayao Miyazaki's Spirited Away.
Yeah, or Shinichiro Watanabe's Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah.
Like, but like, I'm so glad that the West has at least one guy we could say that about. Like, yes, this is an auteur animator. Because there are some cartoon creators that I like to generally follow the careers of, like Craig McCracken. Usually his stuff is pretty good. What? Is there something funny about that?
No, I like the name.
Yeah, you like the name? You pervert. But yeah, like I like Craig McCracken stuff. He's for those who don't know, he's the creator of Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends.
Yeah.
Who else? There's another guy. I don't really follow Butch Hartman's work that much. I heard he took a pretty serious dip in creating quality after Danny Phantom.
Yeah.
And like he left Nickelodeon years ago. But anyway, but yeah, like there aren't like a whole lot of super big like names in animation in the West because unfortunately the West doesn't respect cartoons enough. And I know they don't really respect cartoons in the East, but like the East has such an ingrained like your work is your life sort of vibe that like
Yeah.
those who create animation, they got to go whole hog on it. Otherwise,
Yeah.
what are they doing with their lives? So, um, so like it feels like animation is more respected in the East, even though I know that Japan hates its nerds as much as we do. So, um, in fact, Japan probably hates its nerds more than we do.
Yeah, we get to be like very vocal and out there, our nerds. But
Yeah,
theirs kind of have to hide amongst the crowds.
yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah. For me, one of my, you see, the thing is, whenever, because like nerd hobbies are often considered like inherently childish by a lot of people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The thing is, it's like, look, man, when I was growing up, I wasn't allowed to like this stuff even when I was a kid. Not culturally, like my parents never cared, but like they let me be who I was. But culturally speaking, I wasn't allowed to like the things I liked even as a child. It's like now I'm an adult and I am living in a world that has embraced the things I liked as a child. This is supposed to be a judgment-free zone at this point, and now I have the money and freedom to pursue the hobbies that I wanted to when I was a kid. So, like, leave me alone. I'm happy.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, there's that one C.S. Lewis quote. I think it's a C.S. Lewis quote that I love a lot, where it's the gist is, when I am man, when I am man, where is my brain today? When I became a man, I abandoned childish things, including the fear of childishness.
Mm.
And I live my life by that quote.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's the thing. Like our culture, especially when we're growing up, like it's constantly that thing. At least as you're getting older, you hear from your peers, or it's just ingrained through media. Like what do I mean by media? When we were growing up, like TV stuff like that. Of like, oh, like I don't do that anymore. That's for kids, or whatever it may be. I don't watch that anymore. That's for kids, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the society that's coming up now. That's a little bit more free with that. I don't like everything about our society.
Yeah.
But upcoming generations, including our own, I think have some good ideas.
They have the
Some
freedom
good
to choose their
ideas.
hobbies at the very least.
Yeah, exactly.
And I am going to admit something that brings me great shame, and it was a dark time in my life.
Mm-hmm.
There was a period in my life where I stopped watching cartoons. I know. But there was a brief period in my life where I didn't watch cartoons because I was like, okay, I'm grown up now. I don't need to watch cartoons anymore. So I watched Arrow and Supernatural instead. Yeah, grown up stuff.
Cartoon.
Yes, yeah. I moved on to the CW. Man, I was an older teen. And then I realized, like at some point, I realized, why does it matter?
Yeah.
Cartoons are like I one day I started watching Full Metal Alchemist. Like I started watching anime, and that's what got me back into cartoons in general. Because I still had this pull of like I really want to watch cartoons, but like none of them interest me anymore because they're for kids. But then I always heard that like anime always had this more mature edge to it. So I was like, okay, I'll give anime a try. And I started with Full Metal Alchemist, and that's what really like opened my eyes back up. And I just watched anime for my animation fix for a long time until I started to realize, there are like, fundamentally speaking, there's not that much difference between anime and Western cartoons.
Yeah.
So, and like the two of them influence each other back and forth all the time anyway.
Yeah.
So for me, there wasn't a point in making the distinction anymore. So I just went back to watching Western cartoons, and now I watch both. And at this point, I'm at a point where I really don't care to watch most live action things anymore. I want to watch cartoons.
Yeah. That makes sense.
I started watching Black Dynamite. That's a funny show. I haven't seen the movie. I want to, though.
I'm trying to think. I think I've heard of that. I may have heard of the movie. Let me see.
I think it's Michael J. White. Is it
Oh,
J or
yeah.
Jai?
I don't know. I'm trying to think whenever I've said his name. I think I've said Jay, but it could be Jai. I don't know.
Okay. Well, him. The cool guy.
Yeah.
The cool guy who isn't in enough stuff.
Gamble from The Dark Knight.
Yes. Him. Like I said, the guy who isn't in enough stuff.
Yes.
He's I believe he's Black Dynamite. I think he does the voice of the character in the show. As well. But yeah, it's just like he's a parody blaxploitation character who carries a gun and does kung fu. Like all the stories take place in the 70s. It's so racially insensitive, but like in every single possible direction.
Yeah.
Like,
it's parodying like the blaxploitation stuff, but specifically like the Dolomite stuff from the 70s.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's a bit where Black Dynamite is going over how he knew O.J. Simpson when they were kids, and the way he puts it, because it's a Christmas episode, and the orphans at the orphanage, which is the home for whores and orphans. So the orphans at the orphanage were getting on Black Dynamite because he's not very likable, and then they see an advertisement on TV that like O.J. Simpson is going to the moon, because he's like the most likable black guy.
Yeah.
And so, of course, this is supposed to take place pre stuff.
Yeah.
OJ.
The guy won the Heisman. He's in the Naked Gun movies. Like, this guy rocks.
Yeah, exactly. The most likable black guy from the white perspective. So, and he's going to the moon. He's going to be the first black man on the moon. And Black Dynamite's like, I always said OJ would go to the moon for the white man. And there's a bit where he's telling the story of like when he knew him as a kid. He's like, I knew O.J. Simpson back in my childrenhood from when I was a children, and and I had likability issues even back then. And you see like a child Black Dynamite still has the afro and mustache.
Yeah.
And you just hear a spelling bee officiator from off screen say, 10-year-old Black Dynamite, could you please spell the word white? And he comes with the microphone and says, white. Honky. White. The man is a honky devil. White. and the officiator says, that's incorrect. True, but incorrect. I'm sorry. And then he said, all right, 10-year-old O.J. Simpson, could you please spell the word white? Of course. White. W-H-I-T-E. White. I would love to be an honorary white. Like really leaning into the WH sound.
Yeah.
White.
Dang, I gotta see this movie now.
Oh, that's from the cartoon. That's not even from the movie.
Oh, that's just from the cartoon? Dang.
That's from the cartoon. I've never seen the movie. I had a friend of mine talking about it though at our last D&D session. I mentioned that I've been watching the cartoon. He's seen the movie, but he hasn't seen the cartoon. So he was telling me about it. And he was telling me there's this scene of like when Black Dynamite was fighting in Korea. He said, there was this little Japanese boy I met over in Korea. And I didn't speak a lick of Chinese. So it's like, it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Stuff. It sounds like 2009.
Oh, yeah. The show, I think, was 2011 and 2012.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it followed up the movie pretty quickly. But, yeah. And then, what other cartoons have I been watching? I started rewatching The Venture Brothers again, but because the movie came out. But at this point, I think I'm just going to go back and watch the movie. I've seen the Venture Brothers all the way through like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
So I think I'm just gonna, like, I started it again and I was like, nah, if I'm doing it with the goal of watching the movie instead of just going back and rewatching it for its own sake, I think I'd rather just watch the movie at this point. I already know what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, because I was thinking to myself, like, yeah, this will be a good refresher. Like, but then like I rewatched the second episode because I always start the Venture Brothers at the second episode. I never start with the pilot. Because the first time I watched it through, I started with the pilot, and it sells the premise, but it's not a great representation of what the show actually is.
Yeah.
Like the second episode feels like the real first episode because like it establishes more, and like nothing about what happens in the first episode gets referenced later on in the series. Whereas with episode 2, they still talk about things that happen in episode 2, like 5 seasons later. So it's like with the Venture Brothers, for anybody out there who's never seen the Venture Brothers and wants to, but like is interested, start with episode 2. Start with the second episode. It's called Dia de los Dangerous. Because it takes place in Mexico. But yeah, like I recommend starting with episode 2 for anybody who's interested. And yeah, but at this point, I think I'm just gonna hop into the movie instead of trying to watch the show all the way through just for a personal refresher that I don't really need.
That makes sense.
Because like,
the
last time I finished the show was maybe 6 months ago.
Oh, okay.
It's one of my comfort shows. It's what I go to when I don't know what to watch.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think the Twilight Zone is that for me. Maybe not the best comfort show. There are some good uplifting episodes, but some that are kind of a down note.
Yeah, I don't have very many like comfort shows because there are so many shows that I love that I keep telling myself I got to go back and rewatch those. But like they still sit in my rear view like as a show I've only seen once, like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. I've tried rewatching it multiple times and gotten pretty far a couple times, but like I've only ever watched that one all the way through once, but I still hold it in like really high regards as one of my favorites. But but like it would be dishonest of me to say that's a comfort show for me. Whereas The Venture Brothers is another one of my favorite TV shows, but like I've seen it all the way through 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
It's gotten to the point where I can quote some of the jokes with it as they pop up now, which for a show that's as decently long as the Venture Brothers, that's a big deal.
Yeah. Thinking about it, I don't think I really have any comfort shows. I guess Twilight Zone's the closest thing for me. I think it's mostly because of just like length in a show. I definitely have more like comfort movies than I have like comfort shows, just because it's like, oh, like hour and a half, 2 hours, like that's nothing.
Yeah.
It's easier for me to rewatch a movie than rewatch a show, even if the show is only a limited series.
Yeah. You see, for me, I'm at a point where like one movie is a bit of a time commitment. But with a show, if I'm rewatching it, like it comes in 20-minute chunks. I can kind of just walk away whenever.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, for me, a movie, like I don't watch a movie like every day, but I probably watch at least like 2 movies a week. And like for me, a movie's like it's like the Family Guy coming home after a long day of work. They did all the stuff they needed to in the house, and now they're sitting down with a nice beer. A movie's like that for me. It's my nice beer at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And then if the movie sucks, I'm just like, this tastes like piss. But yeah, like I'll briefly say for me, I've watched stuff here and there, especially whenever was packaging all the Tales from Town City stuff because that takes a while. So I'll throw on shows or documentaries. Got through multiple documentaries, a couple good shows and stuff. I watched one based on a comic. Probably won't read the comic because I heard the comic's meh. It was called Bodies. It's on Netflix. It's a limited series show. I think it's 8 episodes.
Okay.
And it takes place in 4 different time periods. Basically, a body appears in modern day, appears in 2023. It's not modern for us because we're now 2024. Show came out in 2023, though.
Yeah.
Body is discovered in this alleyway in London. It's like, oh, that's so weird because it has a bullet hole in his eye, and also the body's naked. Naked body has a bullet hole in its eye, but the bullet's not there. And it's like, oh, that's so weird. And then this is all shown by the end of the first episode, really.
Yeah.
The same body appears in the same exact place in the year 1942, as well as the same exact place in the year 1890 or 1891. And then by the end of the first episode, same exact place in 2053.
Oh.
And there's not a lot of interaction. There's not really much interaction between the different time periods, like people discussing with some. Oh, that's also another thing. Each of those time periods, it's a different detective, trying to solve this potentially homicide case. What's up with this body? Yeah.
Decades apart.
Yeah. But it's really good. I thought it was really good.
So is the theme song Bodies by Drowning Pool?
I'm so glad it's not. If it was made in America, they probably would have incorporated that somehow. I'm not I love British movies or British TV type person because personally I'm not a fan of half their comedy type stuff.
Yeah.
But they handled this very well and didn't do something like that. Yeah. But yeah, it was really good. It was a good time. I like all the characters.
I do like English comedy. I'm a fan. I like it.
I like some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's, it depends. I mean, just like with American comedy, but
Yeah.
I think The Mighty Boosh is funny.
Yeah, I like Toast of London. Toast of London's pretty funny.
But
anything Matt Berry's in is really good.
Did you say anything Matt Berry's in?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, The IT Crowd. Yeah. If it's got Matt Berry, it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah. But Bodies is a good mystery detective type show with sci-fi here and there. Of course, there's going to be sci-fi because it's a body throughout all these times and time travel somewhat involved. But yeah, solid show. And then last night or yesterday afternoon, I watched The Iron Claw with Zac Efron in it. And I don't give a crap.
See that.
Oh, really? Yeah, I don't give a crap about wrestling. Never have. But I love this movie. It's tragic. It's a sad movie because it's based on a real story.
Yeah.
But I loved it. One of my favorite movies of the year. Zac Efron, at least nominate the guy for an Oscar. He did an awesome job. But yeah, afterwards I looked into the actual thing with the family. The actual thing's even more tragic than the movie. It's so sad.
Yeah, I heard that there were things that they had to not put in because it would have made the movie way harder to deal with.
Yeah, it would have been harder to deal with, as well as some people might definitely harder to deal with because there's already some tragic stuff that is happening, as well as some people might be like, "Oh, come on, really? Another thing?" It's no, that was real life. It's just constant tragedy.
That was real. That happened.
Like literally, and I am mostly against this, but I get them doing it. But I think they could have worked it somehow in the script. It's about this family called the Von Erich family, and it mostly focuses on these brothers. It's brotherly love, and one of the brothers just isn't in the movie. Like he doesn't exist in this movie. And like that's a bit iffy because this is real people you're dealing with, and you just took an entire person out of this situation in this family. But I do get it because of how much happens with this family. His story is also tragic. So it's an added thing, but it is also like, but he is a part of the story though.
Yeah.
But overall, I love the movie. I haven't done this in, I don't know the last time I did it. I cried like 3 times in the movie theater watching this.
Jeez.
Yeah. But it's not just a complete depression fest.
Yeah.
Like it does have some, at least the first half, you get to know the brothers, you love them. And towards the end, it's heartfelt. But if tears streamed from me in a movie, the guy who has no emotion in terms of crying around people are going to be bawling watching this movie.
Yeah, it'll probably get me hard then because I'm one of those people who I have difficulty like having any like kind of real emotional catharsis, especially around other people. So I watch movies with the intention to cry. Like I'll try to find ones that I think are going to make me cry.
Yeah.
Or I'll go back and rewatch one that I know makes me cry every time, just to like have a release because sometimes I just need that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah, that's probably one that I'm happy that I didn't go with my sister to see it then. It probably
you would have been holding back some possibly.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, the last movie I saw in the theater, my sister and I went to see The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes.
Oh yeah, the Hunger Games movie.
Yeah, it was really good.
I haven't seen it yet. Eventually,
probably the best Hunger Games movie.
Oh dang!
Yeah, it's really good. It's long, but like it's a whole story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it tells the whole story, so it's like it feels like 2 movies, and they probably could have split it into 2 movies, but I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad they just went for like the whole thing.
Yeah.
It had like it breaks itself up into 3 parts, and has like title cards for each, Zack Snyder's Justice League style.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it's so like you always know like which part of the story you're in based on when the thing popped up.
Yeah.
Like the movie divides itself into 3 clear stated acts.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the thing is too, by the time the second act starts, you forgot that was something the movie was doing. Was having parts pop up. So you see part 2 pop up, and you're like, oh yeah, the movie did start with that, didn't it?
Oh yeah.
The movie did start with part 1. I forgot about that because like each individual part is so long on its own that it's just like a thing you forget is happening in the movie.
Yeah. That's something I'm seeing more and more, at least the past few years, is movies having the parts pop up in the middle, or it'll say like chapters pop up in the middle, or it might just pop up not like how movies in the past have, where it's like the place or the date or whatever in like the bottom left, but it'll like it's what the heck is superimpose? It'll superimpose and be like Vegas, and then like 40 minutes of the movie is Vegas, and then superimpose black screen 40 minutes later, and it's like London. 40 minutes of the movie is London or whatever.
Yeah,
I've been seeing that a lot more the past few years.
Yeah, it's interesting the way that movies are starting to play with structure now, which I think is something that definitely needs to start happening a lot more. Is like movies. We've reached a point now where people have endured the Hollywood blockbuster machine for so long that like we're tired now. We're tired.
Yeah.
We have never needed something different more than we do right now. Which is
Oh,
another
yeah.
reason I'm happy that the strikes happened.
Which I mentioned it 2 years ago or whenever we talked about on Store Brand Comics. And I think it's even more prevalent nowadays, and I'm okay with that. I, as of right now, am ride or die A24. Like, I am loving what A24 is doing. I don't love all of the stuff they put out, but each thing they put out is something unique, and I am loving it.
Oh, speaking of A24, Has Been Hotel comes out on Prime, I think, next week.
Has Been Hotel. What is that?
Oh, whoa. So, okay, this for anyone who's listened to the podcast before, this is going to feel like it's coming out of nowhere because I've never talked about Has Been Hotel before. Like if you're someone's coming over from Store Brand to listen to this, and for new listeners, this is the first episode you're listening to. Which, by the way, congratulations for getting this far.
Yeah. Yeah, you went on a roller coaster with this episode.
Right? Yeah. So, yeah, as just kind of like a first episode, getting things out of the way. Me and Brandon haven't talked for a while too, like in person.
Yeah. This is kind of catching up.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, what?
I said nice.
Oh yeah, cool. Thank you. I'm the fun one. Has Been Hotel. So, there's an animator. Her name is Vivian something. I can't remember her last name. She's probably better known as Vivzy Pop online. She created a pilot, an animated pilot, a few years ago now called Has Been Hotel, which featured actually a pretty impressive voice cast. Like Jill Harris and Joshua Tomar were both in it. So it's like it's it was pretty cool. Neither of them are coming back for the show on Prime, but anyway, she made an animated pilot about a girl named Charlie who lives in hell, and she's the daughter of King Lucifer and Queen Lilith, and she owns, I don't remember if she bought or inherited the hotel. It's been a long time since I watched the pilot. A friend of mine introduced it to me like a couple of years ago now. But yeah, she owns the hotel by some means. And Charlie and her girlfriend Baggy are committed to turning the hotel into a rehabilitation center to show that sinners can be redeemed after death and can go to heaven and make room in hell. Because apparently there's this thing that happens in hell every 100 years where angels come down and just destroy the souls that are there, because hell only has so much space. And when it gets over full, some people got to go. Yeah. I think that's the lore behind it. It's been a while since my friend explained a lot of this to me as well. So anyway, so the hotel was originally called, I think, like the Happy Hotel, but it gets changed to Has Been Hotel at some point. But Charlie's struggling. Her first like patient is a porn star named like Angel Dust, I think is his name. And she's trying to rehabilitate him so that he can go to heaven, and he's super not into it. Because he doesn't want to, because the way he lives his life is fun to him, so he doesn't want to give that up. So the hardest part for Charlie is convincing people that it's possible to be better, so that they can, be better. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And like everybody thinks that her idea is terrible because it's like people who are in hell are there for a reason. It's too late to change from their perspective. So like there's no way that you can rehabilitate a demon. She has this whole song at the beginning of the first episode that I love called "Inside Every Demon There's a Rainbow," where she sings this whole song about how like you can be better. It's possible. Inside every demon there's a rainbow, and everybody's just like, that's the stupidest thing in the world, and we want you to go away. So like what happens is eventually this demon named Alistair pops up. He's also known as the radio demon. And the way he talks, his voice has this filter over it that makes it sound like his voice is coming in over the radio.
Oh, okay.
Like whenever he speaks. Like he's visibly speaking with his mouth.
Yeah,
but his voice sounds like it's coming in through a radio. And he's got this like real sinister vibe about him. And he tells Charlie that he wants to help her make her hotel successful. And when she asks what the catch is, his answer is just, because I think it'll be fun. It's effectively just like, I just want to see what happens. And it's like this, just really, it's weird.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, he has no faith in the idea. He thinks she's going to fail anyway.
Right.
But he still wants to help her just because it's something to do.
Yeah.
And he's got this like happy, like, this faux cheerful demeanor about him that is hiding a very obvious sinister side. So like the story is about, at least we assume the story is about, because the pilot kind of ends here, but the story is about Alistair helping Charlie make the Has-Been Hotel, like rehabilitation center, basically successful.
Okay.
Even though he doesn't think it'll work.
Yeah.
This one pilot spawned an enormous fan base. And the creator made another pilot for a series called Hell of a Boss, which actually got a series on YouTube. But now, like, it's taken a really long time for Has-Been Hotel to actually come to fruition, and now it's getting a show on Amazon Prime, which, excuse me, I've been drinking Sam's Cola. But it's on Amazon Prime, funded by A24.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so I've been looking forward to it. I always preferred Has-Been Hotel to Hell of a Boss. Anyway, myself, I was never a huge fan of the other one, even though they like share a setting and lore. They both take place mostly in hell. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm excited to see like what they do now that the show can actually have a story.
Yeah.
And it can be more than just a really well done pilot.
Yeah. That would be cool.
It's extremely vulgar. And very adult in pretty much everything about it. So I don't recommend it for families or children.
That makes sense.
But
I'm glad something like A24 is able to let stuff like that live.
Yeah.
Like a producer basically willing to somewhat take risk in the Hollywood landscape. Like A24 is taking risk with stuff like that. And I'm not just saying Has-Been Hotel. I mean, a lot of the stuff they produce, it's taking risk, but like, it's welcome to me. Hopefully the stuff like makes its money back so that they can keep making those risks. Because like a lot of the great stuff past at least 2 years to me has been risks that have been made. And a lot of my favorite movies the past 2 years have been from A24.
Yeah.
And
I'm personally really hoping that the Has-Been Hotel show is successful, because I want it to set a precedent for like animation pilots on YouTube or just online in general getting noticed and getting a full series. Because there's only, like, I can think of one time that really happened previously, and that was Final Space, which was created by Olin Rogers. He released an animated pilot for Final Space online, and I think it caught Conan O'Brien's attention. And so, like, I do believe that Conan's production company like picked Final Space up. And the show had 3 seasons. Unfortunately, got canceled, and it's been slowly disappearing from streaming apps for a couple of years now. Which makes me upset because I never got the chance to watch it. I only ever saw the original pilot. Yeah. Like years and years ago. So I'm mad that I never got to actually see the show because I always wanted to, and I literally heard nothing but good things about Final Space as a series. I genuinely don't understand how it got canceled with how much praise it gets from people. But yeah, but like Final Space set that initial bar. Like Final Space had to kind of be a pioneer for something like Has Been Hotel to happen, I think. And now Has Been Hotel is way more visible, I think, and has a much more dedicated fan base. Because the fans themselves have been keeping the hype alive for years on just that one 30-minute pilot. Yeah. So I'm hoping that it's successful, not just because I am personally really interested in the premise and want to see the show, but I'm hoping it's successful because I want this to set a precedent. I want things like Lackadaisy and Digital Circus, and there's another one. But I want internet pilots like that to get noticed and get picked up and get a full series. Like I want independent creators to be able to have that kind of visibility to create something more interesting and new.
I think it's hopefully it happens with this show, but I think overall that is happening. I think at least with TV shows as well as like Hollywood as a whole is, I hope at least I think 2023 might have possibly helped some with this. Like it doesn't just have to all be big IPs, and there's no issue with big IPs, but I don't know. There's only
I
when
think
it's big IPs, there's only so much freedom you have with it.
Yeah.
So,
and I think 2023 finally reasserted the movie industry as it was before it was all blockbusters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because like 2012 hits, The Avengers is huge, everything is blockbusters and superheroes.
Yeah.
And it's been that way for 10 years.
Yeah.
Then 2023 comes along. People are really getting sick of never-ending spectacle. Explosions and magic aren't really exciting anymore. At least not on the scale that like you get in a blockbuster.
Yeah.
So, but miraculously, 2023 gave us things like Barbenheimer.
Yeah.
And it really, that by itself really reasserted that, like, I do feel like movies are going back to the way they were before. Like the movie industry is on its way back to the way it was, and more interesting ideas are going to come from this new era. I'm hoping we have entered the great indie era where like more independent stuff is going to start shining through. I heard A24 is going to start ramping up budgets for some of their stuff.
Yeah, because they've been making more and more money off of their movies. Because like I think the movie they've spent has had the highest budget. I think was Beau is Afraid, and that was like 30 million, maybe 35 million. I don't know if it made its money back. Beau is Afraid may have broke even or may have been a slight bomb, but and I wasn't like a huge Beau is Afraid fan, but like, yeah, most of their movies cost like $5 to $25 million. Yeah,
Most of those cost
$5.
$5.
But yeah, like compared to, I mean, any Disney thing, it makes sense for them to go to be bigger. Because like, yes, box office, let's say like Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think it made over 100 million in box office, maybe like 150 million. When you compare that to like Marvel stuff or what I mean, like Disney stuff and stuff like that, it's like 150 million, that's not a lot. Compared to the budget of that, that's great. Because I think the budget for Everything Everywhere was like 25 million.
Yeah.
And also when you look at that movie is incredible for visual effects as well as just all kinds of stuff. 25 million.
Yeah.
And then you compare it to the quickly rushed, this isn't anything against visual effects artists or anything like that, but it's the executives.
The artists aren't the ones rushing things, it's the studios.
Exactly. The studios, when they're making like the Marvels or Ant-Man Quantumania, I guess that's a better comparison. I think the budget was like 200 million or something. And then you factor in marketing, like, I mean, like, and it doesn't make sense, the money that is spent. It makes no sense at all. Like, because it's not just visual effects. Yes, visual effects cost. But at least with stuff like Everything Everywhere All at Once, I haven't seen any company or any visual effects person come out and complain that they were treated awfully.
Yeah.
Compared to a Marvel movie or whatever, Disney or whatever. And that was 25 million. And it doesn't have the marketing that a Marvel movie does or a Disney movie does. So I'm going to guess marketing was at most maybe 20 to 25 million. So like it's $50 million for something that looks great as well as is an amazing story compared to something that doesn't look that great, Ant-Man and the Wasp, as well as isn't that great of a story. And overall, in terms of marketing in the movie, costs you like $400 million to make.
Yeah.
So I hope, at least with these big studios, they're still going to be around. It's not like they're going to go anywhere, but I hope they learn something from this year.
Yeah.
I hope they're better able to, one, treat their people better, give people the time they need, as well as fix your budgeting some. I feel like money is being wasted because when you look at the products and stuff compared to other stuff, it's not adding up. Someone is lining their pockets with money, or they're using funds irresponsibly.
Yeah. One thing Marvel needs to do as well, and this goes for not just the quality of the animation, but the quality of the storytelling as well. But it has an effect on the animators because they're constantly having them like change things right up to the last second, and it takes forever to render that stuff. But one thing Marvel as a studio needs to figure out how to do, and again, this all comes back around to writers. Hopefully, the writer's strike will have an impact on this. Marvel needs to have their movies like planned and figured out before they have animators get to work on effects.
Yeah.
Because it would help with staging and framing shots, figuring out like where things go, what color all of the lights are supposed to be, like just in general, because they go in and they get these animators and it's like, all right, now make the laser green. No, make the laser blue. No, let's better green. No, let's try purple. No,
and also green. do all these re-edits with the same deadline.
Yeah.
I'm rushing you.
Changing things. Like, no wonder the ending of Black Panther looks like a PlayStation 2 cutscene.
Yeah. Yeah. But like to touch on what you had mentioned a few minutes ago, I know a lot of people are iffy on how 2024 is going to be with movies. But like what you said, I think 2024 is going to be kind of the year of indie movies, or at least the year of like not a sequel or not a big IP type movies. You are still going to have those. Don't get me wrong. You are still going to have those. But because of the writer strike, because of the actor strike earlier this year, like there weren't a lot of stuff in production would come out in 2024. You do still have stuff that's coming out, but it's not a lot. No. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay because I want to see just unique. I'm fine with indie. I like indie. I want to see more of that.
Yeah. I want to start seeking out more independent stuff myself because I've never been someone who sought out independent movies very much. Like for me, independent was for comic books and video games. But I want to start seeking out more indie movies as well. Like I've said this before, and I'll restate it for the new show and for just so people know where I stand. I'm not going to stop watching Marvel stuff.
Right.
I've taken a break, but I'm not going to stop. I'm going to catch up and I'm going to get back into it. And I'm looking forward to seeing the improvements that the strikes will have made on Marvel stuff as time goes on.
Yeah.
Hopefully they did. I'm hoping to see those strikes having made improvements on the industry all around. And I'm okay to see a slowed down production pipeline from just about everyone, as long as it means that what we're getting improves.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll take quality over quantity any day.
Yeah. Like Deadpool 3 is the only Marvel movie coming out this year. And that's okay. Because you know what? There was a year. No, there have actually been 2 years with only one Marvel movie in them since the MCU started. In fact, there's been a year. There have been 2 years with no Marvel movies at all in them now since the MCU started. The first year, well, no, 2009 actually. The first year without a Marvel movie since the MCU started was 2009, which is the year after Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk came out.
Yeah.
And the first year with only one movie in it was 2010 with Iron Man 2.
Yeah, that's right.
And then 2012 was the second year with only one movie in it with the Avengers. And then the only other year without any Marvel movies in it, and this was not by their choice either, was 2020. Because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Other than that, other than those like 4 years, there's been a minimum of 2 Marvel movies every single year. And since 2021, several TV shows.
Right.
Plus, apparently the Netflix stuff is being reestablished as canon as of Echo.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Like Daredevil is no longer fluidly canon; it's now solidly canon.
Yeah,
because they put it and Jessica Jones in the official Marvel timeline on Disney Plus.
Yeah, but overall, 2024, I'm hopeful for it. Now that's not to say we aren't going to get some crap. I think there's going to be a lot of crap this year because studios weren't able to make a lot of stuff this year to where whatever was shelved, let's pull it off of the shelf and let's put it out there. So we are going to get some crap, but I think we're going to get some really good stuff. So I'm hopeful.